gaa-bimaaji'iwemagak. Anin, kage-gabo indishnikas. Mekinak indudem. Mekinak wajibwing indunjaba. Beishoga kabakang indanongom. Apajigo miigwech bizindawyeg. And what I said there was a traditional Ojibwe protocol greeting. I said hello, all of my relatives. My name is Kage Gabo. I'm Turtle Clan. I'm a descendant of Turtle Mountain. I live close to Minneapolis today. And I wanted to thank all of you for listening tonight, for jumping on and watching this live Ojibwe Word of the Day. This is something I look forward to doing on Thursday nights, and I'm so happy that you've all taken a few moments out of your probably busy day to learn about Anishinaabe culture, our language, our history, our spirituality, our philosophy and ethics. So, miigwech. And tonight's word of the day is, well, it's an incredibly important one. And since I did ikwe last week, which is an incredibly ancient word, this word is actually culturally and spiritually and scientifically tied to this word. Today's word of the day is Nibi, Nibi, and that's our Ojibwe word for water. That is an ancient word, and that's one of those important ones because you find this all over the world. Human beings absolutely need water to survive. So in every language spoken by every human being in the world, they have a name, a word for water. And so this word shows up in so many different dialects of Algonquian that it's easy to state. It's effortless to state that this is like a pre-Ice Age word. And so when we're using a term like that, we're listening to the same sorts of sounds that our ancestors said. Where I'm at in Minnesota, exactly where I'm at was a mountain of ice a mile high before Mississippi, before the Great River existed, before the Gitchigami, before Lake Superior or the Great Lake. We have been using a word like Nibi, Nibi, and it's always had an incredibly spiritual as well as physical importance to us. So I was at a language conference this week at Fort Francis, and I was incredibly impressed with how they began each one of these both days. They had offered tobacco, a sema, and asked a woman to pray with water. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to be sitting at a table with a number of fluent Ojibwe speakers, elders, real wisdom keepers, incredibly impressive people. And one of these gentlemen very eloquently and elegantly described why this woman was doing this with the tobacco and with the water. Her connection to the moon that governs all the waters on the earth. Her ability to give life and the water that surrounds the child while she's carrying this baby. And the water that will, evacuate or leave her when she gives birth. And so, an important part with that is that a lot of the water teachings are ladies' teachings. They're women's teachings. So I won't really go in depth with those tonight. We know that women they look after the water, and that the spirits who look after the water are ikwewak, are women. So if you really want to go in depth with these teachings, I would highly suggest that if you know someone who knows how to speak about the water or who prays with the water, go and offer her some tobacco and ask her in a very good way if she could go in depth with these teachings. It would be very well worth your time to do that. However, as a human being, I don't necessarily need to talk about these particular spiritual teachings, because as a human being, as an Anishinaabe, it's a literal human being, I need water to survive. I need water to live. And so when those ladies were praying with the water, that's one of the things that they were acknowledging, that this water gives us life. And, it's as a cultural point, whenever Anishinaabe were by water, they offered tobacco. Whenever they reached a new zibi, that's our Ojibwe word for river, they set down tobacco. If they were at the Zaga Iganing, if they were ever at a lake, they would set tobacco in there. and they were acknowledging the spirit that looks after the water, and they were showing due deference and respect to the water. The water can give us life. And also, if you are not incredibly careful around the water, it can take life too. You can easily perish. You can easily drown. So you always showed great respect to the spirits who were watching over the water and to the water itself. You were always acknowledging it. You were acknowledging that the life that it gave you. And one of the phrases I put underneath here, I thought, well, if I can't do the spiritual teachings, then what, or the particular lady's teachings, what will I talk about then with water, which is such an important word, which is so, it's talked about nowadays for great reason. And one of the things that I'm often asked is, well, how do you say miniwachoni in Ojibwe? And I don't know if you know that, that's a Dakota or Lakota word, or a Lakota phrase, miniwachoni. And again, my Dakota, Nakota is poor. Dakota, Lakota, Nakota are as similar to Ojibwe as, let's say, German is to Mandarin Chinese. These are completely different languages. They're completely different language families. Our terms are not mutually intelligible by any means. So when I'm asked, well, how do you say miniwachoni, water is life, in Ojibwe? You could say Nibi, gaa-bimaaji'iwemagak, but that really doesn't make sense to a lot of the speakers. But we do have a way of describing that is explaining the exact same way, or the exact same phrase that the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota people are using. And for me, that's Nibi, gaa-bimaaji'iwemagak. Nibi, gaa-bimaaji'iwemagak. And this really means the water that gives life. It's the water that gives life. And what Anishinaabe are acknowledging there is that that bimaaji'iwe can really mean to give life to someone. It can mean to make someone live. It can also mean to save someone's life. So they're acknowledging that water gives us life. Water gives everything life. All around it, it gives everything we need to survive life. And it does it in a way that I would describe as being unconditional love. Unconditional love. Water gives life to everything around it. Everything absolutely needs water to survive. And so in that phrase, I think you get an incredible understanding and in how Ojibwe speakers describe it. It is what gives me life. It is what gives everything around me life. And it does this in an unconditional way. For me, it's a perfect example of how to show unconditional love to people. So, since it gives life, you can be in two incredibly different camps nowadays. Miniwachoni comes, of course, from the Standing Rock protests. And now we have Line 3. There is Enbridge. There are a number of pipelines and construction that are going around and are taking place on sites where we get our water from, that are endangering the waters that give us the wild rice, that give life to the environment where Anishinaabe live. And a number of people have spoken up and said, Nibi, gaa-bimaaji'iwemagak. Water gives us life. Miniwachoni. It gives all of us life. And, you don't actually have to believe in that spiritual perspective to have that be a complete truth. You can act without any altruism at all. You can be as self-centered, as egotistical, as desirous or greedy or self-centered as you want to be, and still need water to survive. And that would still be the very best thing for you, even if you were totally egotistical, even if you were only thinking of yourself. That would be the very best thing for you too, would be to have water. So hopefully as we're going forward, we can meet with anyone. We can convince anyone that they too need water to survive. And like water, hopefully that will give us life, and that we'll be able to meet with anyone the same way that water gives everyone life unconditionally, that we can meet each other with that sort of unconditional compassion for one another. So, mi ie wa kiroyan nongom. That's all I'm going to speak about tonight. Apajigo miigwech bizendai. Thank you all so much for listening to this live Ojibwe Word of the Day broadcast. And again, if you know someone who is interested in our language, our philosophy, our ethics, our spirituality, our way of being, please feel free to like and share this video with them. Meet you manekwa kiroyan. That's all I'll say. Dagasana and Guamazik. Please, all of you, do take care. Banama minuau de sabandamangi guabandaman. And the spirits will decide when we see each other again. Meet you.